Hi, welcome to our podcast. My name is Vanessa Jupe, and I'm the founder of Leva. As a working mother, I faced the struggles and self doubt and career challenges that come with motherhood and being a woman. Let's be honest, it's not easy. One of my main goals in creating Leva was to support women through their life journeys to be successful as mothers and professionals. An integral part of this vision has always been to support women with breastfeeding as well, because it's fraught with difficulty, misinformation, and judgment from people around us. My intention for Leva was to create a hub of scientific information explained in simple terms so that mothers can make the best decisions for their own unique feeding journeys. I have to say that my inspiration for starting Leva was actually my own pregnancy and birth of my child, Roosevelt, who's here with us today. He would like to say hi. Come on up.
Hello.
Thank you. Okay. We're starting a podcast alongside our website, which is already available, and our app, which is brand new, to provide a comprehensive repository of information for women looking for support on their motherhood journeys. We'll be releasing episodes twice a month, and it'll cover a range of topics. So you'll hear about breastfeeding, pumping, formula feeding, basically any kind of infant feeding you can think of. We'll talk about juggling a career and motherhood and all of those psychological fun topics like motherhood guilt that come along with it. We'll talk about the baby's health, your health as a mom, and all sorts of sleep issues and how to support yourself and your family on your journey. So we've got your back. We'll also talk to lactation consultants that work with Leva, sleep experts, midwives, and other healthcare providers to make sure that you're getting the best information when you need it. On today's podcast, we're going to talk about the Leva team, how we got to where we are, and all of that fun stuff. And then you'll get to meet more of the team also as the podcasts go along. So first, we're starting with the mission of Leva, my own experience with breastfeeding, because the pain of that is what started all of this, and then trying to juggle that career and motherhood piece. And we're also going to cover how Leva helps women. So with that, I'd love to introduce Alison. She's on the call with us. As you can see, she's been with us for over 2 years now, which is just completely crazy to think about. Alison has been with us since almost day one, and we're so lucky to have her. She heads up our content strategy, and she's also a physical therapist with a psychology degree, which is unique and amazing and such a value in what we do. So with that, Alison, let's learn a bit about you.
Thank you, Vanessa. That's a beautiful introduction. Yeah, it's been an amazing journey with Leva. Sorry, those are my dogs outside here. um, yeah, I've, as you say, I've been working with you for 2 years, and I primarily started with you as a writer because I applied to your writing job online, and breastfeeding has always been a subject I've been very passionate about. As a mother of two boys, I'd read as much as possible about parenting and particularly about attachment parenting, about natural birth and breastfeeding as you do when you're pregnant. And I became so engrossed in the topic that I decided to study developmental psychology, as you've mentioned, which was, just amazing and fascinating. And it just taught me so much. I think you always learn so much about yourself as a mother when you study these topics. And I finished my degree in 2020. I'm really enjoying working with you and Leva, and putting this app together has just been an incredible experience for me. As you said, I'm also a physical therapist, or as we say in South Africa, a physiotherapist. And one of my other passions is treating women with pelvic floor issues, both hypertonic and hypotonic. Hypotonic means when the pelvic floor is very contracted, and women obviously have a lot of pain then. And then hypotonic, which is something a lot of mothers experience after giving birth, which is when the pelvic floor becomes a lot more relaxed and you have to do specific exercises and other interventions to get everything back in the right place, and everything sort of working as it did pre-pregnancy. I've learned so much, even though I devoured so many books when I was pregnant and breastfeeding. The subjects and the topic, the matter that we've come up with as a team, and what I've learned through working with you guys and all the research we've done has just been absolutely mind blowing. And every time I speak to somebody about about our
Totally.
science and what we do and just all the research that's there. I wish it was a resource I had when I was breastfeeding, because I think I would have made very different decisions, as we all do. So I think that's why we were so excited to really get this out into the world and get these resources into the hands of mothers that'll really make a difference.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I love that. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about why we started Leva, where it came from, and I'll talk a little bit. I'll back up. I'll talk a little bit about myself because I think a lot about motherhood is how it challenges our worldview and our perceptions of who we are, and it's so weird. Like looking back to when I was pregnant, and I'm sure many of you out there can relate to this. Like when you're pregnant, man, it's such a crazy journey, and I know some people have very difficult pregnancies and the morning sickness and everything else that goes along with that. Trust me, the morning sickness was my friend for quite a while, so I get it. But it was such a cool time at the same time because you know this like amazing transformation is happening and you're growing your baby in your belly and all this stuff. It's so exciting. And at the same time, everyone's coming up to you and saying, you know, congratulations. Oh my gosh, we're so happy for you. And so it's this like period of time that's like quite positive in many, many ways. And people would say things like, oh, sleep now, and all of those jokes, you know, that you always hear that turn out not to be so funny after you give birth. But at the time, it's kind of funny. Oh, and I always saw myself as a very type A person. You know, I was kind of a perfect, no, I was quite a perfectionist most of my career. And I was also very type A. So things had to be done perfectly. And whenever I would set a goal for myself, I was going to work towards that goal. I was going to achieve it somehow. So, you know, I've had quite a great career. I've always been like, what's the next thing? You know, that's always been how my mind works. So I get to a manager level. Okay, what's next? Director. Okay, after that, what's next? Executive. Okay, you know, and so kind of climbing that ladder and setting those goals. And I felt like motherhood would be the same thing. You know, I had specific goals for how that was going to work. And I thought it would be, you know, and also I was a runner, right? So I would like set goals. I'm going to run a 5 mile run. I'm going to run a 10 mile run. I'm going to do a half marathon. Why wouldn't it be the same with motherhood? So I kind of believed that I would give birth. My baby would breastfeed just fine. He would sleep in his own room from day one. So I had a crib and everything. All of these things were part of the plan. And nothing could have been further from the truth, right? Like these expectations versus reality was like quite astonishing. So, and one of my coworkers too, like Brent, if you watch this, when I told him my plan for my baby to sleep in his own room from day one, he was like, ha ha ha. He laughed in my face. And I was like, what are you doing? What are you talking about? Well, yeah, my baby was in my room for 4 months. You know, he did not leave my room. So, yes, a lot of learning along the way. I feel so naive about it. But it was really the breastfeeding challenge that was so eye opening to me. So I'm from the generation where most of us were formula fed. And of course, we were formula fed and things worked out. So we're like, oh, we're just fine. So I would never have a problem giving my baby formula. And then, you know, I gave birth. I started to breastfeed. I thought it would work out. And it really didn't. It was challenging because he seemed to latch just fine. A couple days after I gave birth, we had the midwife come and visit us, and she weighed him, and he really wasn't gaining enough weight back. And she said that happens a lot early on, so we'll just keep an eye on it, but make sure you're breastfeeding, you know, around the clock all the time, which, you know, I thought I was doing well, but still he wasn't gaining enough weight. And as the days went on, I started to experience a lot of pain in my breasts, which I was not at all expecting. You know, you hear that breastfeeding can be painful at the beginning, but that it gets easier and like the pain starts to lessen. For me, it was the opposite. It actually continued to get more and more painful. And then about a little after a week of Roosevelt being born, we went and had him checked out again, and he still wasn't gaining enough weight. Excuse me. So it was at this time that we realized we were going to need to do something different. So we had a lactation consultant come. Both the lactation consultant and the midwife decided that we should start supplementing with formula so he could get better, you know, better weight gain and everything else. And, you know, I started pumping and doing like the around the clock, like pump or nurse, then pump, then feed more from the bottle of breast milk, and then start supplementing with formula. So it was just such a crazy nightmare. The lactation consultant said that it looked like he had a posterior tongue tie. and a lip tie. And I wasn't even aware that that was a thing that could exist. But basically, what that means is that you probably know a lot more about this, Allison, but basically, like their skin is tight. They have some tight tissue in their mouths. So that makes it really difficult for them to have a proper latch and extract milk easily and well. And so she recommended that we find a pediatric dentist that could release the ties and he could nurse better. And so everything I read after that about that sort of condition, most people had a lot of success with it. And so for us, we really didn't want to have to do that because we felt like our baby was perfect and we didn't want to change him and we didn't want to have anything painful happen for him. But we also wanted to make sure we were able to breastfeed. And if that was going to make all of the difference in the world, then we wanted to do it. So my husband and I discussed it and we decided to go ahead with that. And it still didn't solve the problem. So anyway, I was just totally shocked by how hard breastfeeding was. And then I went back to work, maybe 2 months after my baby was born. And so then I was pumping, 3 times a day while at work and then around the clock since the breastfeeding thing didn't work out. There's a lot more to go into on the breastfeeding front, but I won't belabor that now. But then just taking the time out of your work day, trying to schedule all your meetings around, like pumping was not easy. And then, of course, I had some challenges with being passed over for a promotion while I was on maternity leave and all of these things. And I couldn't believe that this was all happening to me, and you hear about that stuff. Like you hear about uh, women being kind of sidelined in their careers because they become parents. And I just, you never really think, oh, that's going to happen in my life, right? And in this
Yeah.
particular like job, I was already an executive, but it was a more senior level, and I had business partners that
Yeah.
I supported that were writing recommendations to the
Sure.
senior leadership team and everything else. So I really thought I had a good chance of getting that promotion or at least interviewing for it. And neither of those things happened. So it was really eye-opening how much better we need to be doing as a society. Thank goodness it's been over 4 years because, as time moves on, things start to diminish. And one of the hardest parts about breastfeeding that totally blew my mind was just the physical and psychological pain that that came from it. I remember laying on the couch when my son was just a couple weeks old and having still trying to breastfeed him and having stabbing pains in my breasts and taking him from my chest and handing him to my dad and asking him to please take this baby. And I remember my dad being shocked, like, what is wrong with you? Why are you doing this to yourself? Like, why don't you just give him formula or whatever instead of struggling through this? Like the stabbing pains that would happen, like they felt like they went really deep into my breasts after I would nurse, and they would last for sometimes more than an hour afterward. And so if you think about nursing every couple of hours, it's almost like you're in constant pain. I remember a friend was coming over and I really wanted to hang out with them, but I was in such physical torment that I just couldn't. And I wanted to just lay in bed. So I grabbed these plastic cups and put them on top of my breasts so I could lay in the bed without the sheets touching my breasts because it hurt so bad. And it's just like such a weird
Yeah.
thing to think back on, but it was just like so much pain. And then if I was able to pump or nurse or whatever, then I would end up sometimes with these blisters on my nipples that would then cause my breast to get clogged, and so the milk wouldn't come out. So then your breast is getting swollen and engorged because the milk can't come out and you have lumps in it. And then especially if you're back at work, you're like stressing out because that can turn into mastitis, which is an infection, and then you have to go get an antibiotic, so it becomes a whole thing. And so I just feel like there is a lot more we can do to
Yeah.
support women when they're going through things like that, because I was trying to figure it all out on my own and going to numerous lactation consultants and even talking to them about this sort of thing. They were really struggling to understand what I was going through and to diagnose it properly. So I was treated for thrush when what I had wasn't thrush. It was really just a bad latch and vasospasm and things like that. And I didn't know that at the time. So it was a lot of weeks and months trying to figure out what was wrong and trying to figure out what the best solution was. So I didn't want other moms to have to go through what I went through. And I think pain is a really interesting thing. And as an employee in corporate America, my job was product management. And product management is all about solving problems for your user base through technology and digital solutions. And so when I taught product management, I would always say, if you don't have a problem, then you don't have a product. And so for me, like, breastfeeding has lots of problems. So there is totally a way of creating products around this to support mothers. But at the time when I was going through this myself, I really couldn't find any of the solutions out there that I needed to really help. And so it's been in my mind for years now that I really wanted to create something that would help mothers have a better experience and better outcomes. And that's really where Leva came from.
Um, well, just on that point, Vanessa, a lot of a lot of your vision for Leva has been achieved through um, collaborations with various organizations. And another way that, and of course our website, as you mentioned earlier, but another way that we're trying to support mothers through this very difficult phase is through our app. Um,
Yeah.
so I don't know if you want to describe a little bit of what our app is about.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that I feel a lot of folks struggle with when they're trying to do the right thing from a motherhood perspective, feeding and changing diapers and all of that stuff, is just tracking what's
Mm,
going on, like knowing when should you feed, for how long, is your baby getting enough milk. And a lot of that is, you can tell that through, how many wet diapers are they having, how many dirty diapers are they having. So just having that ability to kind of track those moments is super duper helpful, especially as a new mom, to make sure that you're on track, your baby's on track. So our app is really centered around a tool that allows you to track your breastfeeding, track your pumping. If you're feeding your baby a bottle, whether it's breast milk or formula, you can track that in the app as well. And then you can track the number of dirty and wet diapers your baby has, so you can see if everything's pacing the right way. And you can talk to your
exactly.
pediatrician about it and make sure that everything's kind of on
Yeah.
track.
And I think
We've
just on
actually,
that point, sorry to
go
interrupt
ahead.
you. I was just going to say, having the app with all that information on it, in graphs, and you literally you can see exactly what you've tracked and how many times that day you've breastfed, how many mils the baby's got if you're formula feeding or pumping, how many wet diapers and dirty diapers they've had. So because you've got all that information at hand, it's so much easier to tell the pediatrician what's going on. So that they can actually treat the issue. And I think that's a lot of the issue with moms is they go to the pediatrician, they say like, well, how much are you breastfeeding? They're like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what's going on, because you're tired, you sleep deprived, you've got so much going on, that having one place where you can track all that makes a huge difference to moms.
Absolutely. Well said. And we've talked to a couple different pediatricians as we've started to build this app out. And that's the number one thing they tell us when they see the app. They're like, oh my gosh, yes, this is exactly what I ask moms. So if there was a place where they were recording that and they could just
Yeah.
know what they have been doing, that would be hugely helpful for us. And the other thing on that point is, we also, based on pediatrician feedback, when you log your baby's diapers, depending on the color of their feces, that can actually be a warning sign that you need to talk to your pediatrician. So we've also built that in there. So if your baby has red, white, or black poop, and especially if the black poop is, 5 days or more after they were born, those are actually warning signs that something might be wrong. And so now we've put an alert in the app. If that is the case, it will inform you to go talk to your pediatrician. So we're really trying to make this super helpful for moms so they know if things are going well or not. And then to your point, Allison, there are graphs inside the app so you can see if you're pumping like I did. You can start to see, if you're pumping regularly, you'll start to notice that your milk supply is actually increasing. Most of the time that will happen. And so you'll probably, at least for me, I felt this really great sense of relief and
Mm.
reward that what I was doing was actually having the outcome I was wanting to see, which was more milk in my case. If you're an over supplier, it's the opposite, right? You'll want to make sure that you're managing your milk supply and you're not producing more milk, and being able to keep track of those things can be incredibly valuable for that. And then also, you can log your child's growth. So in the app, you can log their weight, their height, their head circumference, and all of these things help you to understand how your baby is growing and are they growing on the right track that we want to see them grow on. So that's also included in there. So
Yeah,
it's good, super
absolutely.
helpful.
we've been working on this app for a long time, but it's, as you say, it's finally coming to fruition. And we've had a lot of
Yeah.
users test it out and give us feedback, and we've been incorporating their feedback into the app.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that point, I know both of us feel, and everyone we work with, because I feel like we've built a really good team so far, is so centered on our users and our mamas that are needing the support and using the app and testing it out for us. Like, our main focus is making sure that this tool is something that's really, really valuable for the community of moms that need the help, that are using the app. So your feedback is the number one most important thing to us, because we want to make sure that this is super valuable, helpful to you. So nothing will ever be more important than that. So anyway, feel free to give us feedback all the time. We're constantly listening and we're constantly evolving. And to that point, we've gotten feedback about the meditations that are in the app. That's actually something people are really delighted by. When you're nursing or pumping, you can access meditations that are focused on that subject. And in general, we have a large library of just mindfulness meditations. So it can help you get into a more relaxed state and turn that task into something that can be a little bit of downtime and hopefully a moment to relax and kind of connect with yourself, connect with your baby. And there has been a lot of good research that's proven that being in that state and listening to meditations that help you get into that state can actually improve your milk flow and everything else. So we're trying to bake a lot of science into the product that we've built to help with the outcomes that you're looking for.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the meditations are
Yeah.
very, very valuable. And we also have a lot of great content on the app. So I think this is another differentiating. In addition to the meditations, I think we've got over 200 articles, and they cover everything on breastfeeding. So from mastitis to engorgement to nipple pain to how to increase your milk supply to correct latch positioning. You know, we've got videos that also talk about the correct latch and positioning and how to hold your baby and how to feed if you maybe a plus size or yeah. So everything you can think of on
Yeah.
breastfeeding we cover, and we also talk about pumping and formula feeding, and we cover other topics like mom's health and postpartum depression, baby's health, signs that baby's doing well, what to do if you've got flu and you want to breastfeed, but which medications are safe to take. And we also cover teething issues and sleep issues. And then,
Yeah.
as another passion of yours, Vanessa, is how to juggle a career and motherhood. And we give a lot of tips on
Yeah.
that. And we've actually got a career coach that we work with as well that consults to some of our moms. So it basically covers the full
Yeah.
spectrum of what you may need to know as a mother. Um, yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I feel like we're constantly learning and growing. And Allison is, it's funny. I would say a little humble, because she says, I think we have over 200 articles now. Allison is our head of content and she has put the whole strategy together. So she knows we have more than 200 in all the topics. Like, she has been a total life changer having Allison on board. So yeah, and she's always on the lookout too for new content and questions moms have and anything that we may not cover. I mean, we're constantly digging in to cover more. So sorry, my kid is knocking at the door now. Baby, I'm on this podcast recording. I can't help right now.
And just to round off, another exciting phase of our app is that we'll be tracking the development of every mom's pregnancy. So the pregnancy tracker will track the baby's development, including the baby's size each week and how the baby is growing. And later on, we're going to feature also where the mom is at each week of her pregnancy, what she's feeling, her physical changes, and just what she should do to sort of stay on track and keep healthy. So I'm very excited about the pregnancy track as well. And the reason we're doing this is we want to follow the mom's full sort of motherhood journey from pregnancy and into the breastfeeding phase, so that she knows how to use the app, she's familiar with the app, and that she can prepare herself for the arrival of her baby and of course for her breastfeeding journey.
Wonderful. I'm also super excited about that, and the content and everything is coming along beautifully. So That's wonderful. Anything else that you want to share with our listeners?
No, I think we pretty much covered, what the app's about and why it's important that this app was created. So there's nothing else I can think to add at this point.
Wonderful. Well, me neither. I think that covers kind of the key points that we wanted to cover with you for our very first podcast. Stick with us. Next week, we're going to be talking to Kylie Knight. She is our social media expert and guru. She's had a very interesting pregnancy journey and breastfeeding journey. She's going to share that with us as well and why Leva is special for her. So more to come soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vanessa. I look forward to hearing that episode too. Thanks for having me today. I really appreciate it.